So, Blacklisted, oh, subscriber, OG subscriber, been following me since pretty much day one. Keeps suggesting that I do like a year in review video, and I keep meaning to, and just haven't done it. So, I'm gonna start today. I happened to be walking out here checking the cows and decided to walk down here and see what all was going down over here, which is nothing at the moment. But if you remember, it was 2 years ago now. There was a cow standing right about here where I am. And right here's this little wash. It's not really a creek, it's just drainage from land up north of me there. But she was standing right here having trouble. I could tell she was in trouble. I didn't know what was wrong yet because I hadn't got a good look at her. And she, of course, wouldn't turn around so I could see what was going on with her. And I tried to cross this creek right here, or this little wet spot. And she was standing right about here, and she charged me. There's a rabbit. So she charged me, knocked me over, right down here in the mud, and it's real just soupy in here. You can see, I mean, standing water. It was earlier in the year, so nothing was green, but she bogged down right here in the mud, and that's probably the only thing that kept me from getting actually ran over and hurt. Is she buried up dang near to her belly, right there in this little low spot, and I bailed off this way. So what I was trying to do is I'd approach from about where I'm at now, and she was standing off over here in that corner. Now, I knew not to corner her like that when she's stressed out and in trouble. And what I'd wanted to do was come kind of around here, but you can see these little trees were kind of blocking my path. So what I thought I would do was just jump right across here and then kind of go through the trees. It didn't work though. As soon as I stepped right about here, and there was more water in it at the time, I kind of jumped across to about here, and then at this point she's standing literally right here, and she charged me. I dropped the camera, everything. She got bogged down right here where I'm standing, and then took off while I was collecting myself. And yeah, as I'm standing here looking at it, this is a terrible plan. There's no way I'm getting through all these brambles and crap. But anyway, that was the first time a cow had ever tried to kill me, and it was the first time I'd ever had a cow that was in trouble. And she ended up actually dying. I lost the baby and the cow in that ordeal. I had to try to pull the calf, and I was too hard on her while I was pulling it, just too rough, and cow ended up dying. So bad deal all the way around. That calf, it was already dead. It was still inside of her, already dead. Presented perfect, 2 feet, head was out, but by the time I got a look at her, the his tongue was hanging out. He was already dead. So at that point, it's just a matter of trying to pull the calf to try and save the cow, or the heifer in this case, and it didn't work. So one of the first hard lessons to learn is that, well, number one, don't corner a stressed out cow. They're way bigger than you, and they will hurt you, or they'll at least try. But two, animals die. It happens. So that heifer would have been, I think, the third heifer to calve that year, my first year out here, and of course didn't go as planned. But just walking over here checking everything out this year. Of course, I'm 3 years into it now, and thinking about it, I just happened to be over here and reminiscing. It's funny. It's almost a fond memory of her trying to kill me, and followed by a pretty sad day. I pulled that calf right over here by the pond, and I could tell I had screwed up. So third lesson, when you're pulling a calf, you got pulled down, you got to be gentle. And I think what ultimately happened to her is I was too rough, like I said, pulling it, and I think I tore something inside of her, and she basically just bled out internally, which sucks. So, and it was my fault. I mean, I was smoked at the end of the day, and should have done it differently, I guess, and maybe she'd still be alive. But so that was kind of a rough day for me. But happened right back over here, right back in that little corner. Yeah, I wish he'd survived to try and kill me again, but just not the way the cards were that day. Let's go look at a few other things while I'm out here. There's something else to think about while I'm just cruising through here. If we look around, I don't think you can really tell, but I've got most of these calves tagged. I tagged them the day they were born or the day after, in some cases a couple days after. But it's really valuable and important to tag as many as you possibly can the day that they're born or soon after. So if you don't, then you have to pair them up at some point. Now that's not really important for me to know who they are because I'm not going to keep them. They're going to go to the sale barn at some point. But for records and for management, for figuring out, being able to track which cows had babies, if they had a bull calf or if it was a heifer calf, I've got to tag them. I've got to identify them. And I didn't understand that my first year. And so most of my calves weren't tagged. And we actually ended up in a weird situation where I was moving them from across the creek back here to the south of me, and my neighbors were helping me, and we moved them all across. We thought, well, when we went to counting them, we were two short, right? Two calves short, and so there was two calves that were laying down in the tall grass back there that we just missed, and so the reason I was moving them that day is because there was rain rolling in that afternoon and into the next day. And so what you have to do if you don't have tags on them is you take all the calves that don't have tags and you put them in a pen and separate them from their moms. Then you got to wait like 6 hours, right? You got to wait for them to get hungry, wait for moms to get anxious from missing them because they can see them. They know we're right there where they're at, but they'll start to want them to nurse. And then one at a time, the cows who you don't know, right, you let them into the pens with the calves, and they'll only let their calf nurse at that point because they've been missing them. And so you have to do that one at a time. Well, I had like 20 of them, and so we had to do that 20 times. Then you find that cow, you run her through, chase the baby through, then you can tag it. And we were just doing this to figure out who I was missing because I didn't know since nobody was tagged, right? So first lesson here, don't move them to a place without pins until you know absolutely every single calf, or at least have a tag in their ear. And in my case, they will not move across the creek until I have every calf on the ground, and every single one of them will have a tag in their ear. So what you can do, even if you don't know who their mom is, you can just put a tag in their ear with a number higher than anything else that you're going to use. So they're named after their moms, right? So what do we got here? This is 234 right here. 234, 34, right? So 2022 is the year that this little guy was born, and his mom is 34, right? So knowing that I don't have any cows with tags over 50, I can just start putting a 51, 52, whatever. And then as I see them pair up later, then I can write that down and I'll have a record of it. Not having them tagged ends up being a problem if you run into that sort of situation where you're not sure who you're missing. And at that point, I wasn't, and so what ended up happening is it started pouring rain on us, and we had to work cattle in the rain, and we were sorting out trying to find who the pairs were, and it was just kind of miserable. My neighbor, he actually still has in his raincoat numbers written down on the inside of his coat here, rain jacket, because that was the only place that was dry enough to write on. And so as we were trying to pair them up and figure them out, he would write them down on the inside of his rain jacket, and still to this day, those numbers are on there. So it's kind of funny, but yeah, they're absolute troopers, and for sticking with me and helping me through all of that. But uh, lesser people wouldn't have, because it wasn't fun. It was pretty miserable. But yeah, so tag everybody as best you can and try not to have to pair them up, and by no means move them somewhere impossible to find calves. Like for instance, the new pasture over here got a bunch of trees in it. Hard to find a new calf. So no new calves in trees. that one's important. As much as I can help it. I'm gonna be out here in the open, nice open pasture where I can find them. And before they get moved into somewhere where they can get lost, everybody's got to have a tag in it. That way, if I move them across the creek, when I go to move them back, I can count. And then if somebody's missing, they'll at least have tags that we can figure out who's missing and go from there. So, yeah, still funny. I make a joke every time it's raining. Not every time, but a lot of times when it's raining, I say, well, it's raining. Time to work calves. My neighbors always just laugh and shake their heads because only an idiot like me that didn't know what was going on would move them across the creek while I was still having babies and caused all kinds of chaos that day. There's something that I'm not very good at myself. I'm trying to get better at it though. That's asking for help. And my neighbors have been teaching me this that if you need a hand with something, just make a phone call and ask. This pond, which is huge, I think by all rights it's actually probably considered a lake. It's big enough, but this would have never happened if my neighbors not prompted me to pick up the phone. And so the deal was there was a construction project going down the road that they needed fill material, and they thought they were going to get it from my neighbor, and ended up, for whatever reason, their soil didn't pass some sort of test, and so they're trying to figure out where they're going to source this material. Well, the next place that they could source it that they knew of is like 5 miles down the road, something like that, or maybe less than that. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, it was kind of a long ways away. They're literally like 500 yards from my property though, and so they talked to me, prompted me to just pick up the phone and go talk to the guy. And actually, I didn't even call him. I just rode down there and talked to him one day when they were down there working and showed him this. I said, hey, I'm trying to dig a pond here myself. And I was at the time. I was digging with the backhoe. And I had a hole that was, I don't know, about 12 feet deep and probably, if you make it kind of a approximate circle, about 12 feet in diameter. So decent hole, but it's not this. And so I showed them where I was digging, and I had soil already dug up, so it was easy for them to do their geological tests. But all it took was literally just having a conversation with the dude and saying, hey, you're welcome to take material here if it'll work for you. And I ended up with way more of a pond than I could have ever imagined. I don't know how. There you go. Look at this now. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful, and it's huge. And while they were out here, they ended up building the pad that someday my house is going to go on, which didn't cost me anything because they owed me for all of the material that they took out of the pond. I had them push some trees off into the pond, you can see over there, for fish habitat. This isn't stocked yet, but it will be this year. Yeah, I mean, it's a heck of a deal. And if I had just tried to dig this with my backhoe, which was my plan, got the backhoe, I'll dig myself a little pond right here. It would have been a decent watering hole for the cows, but it would not have been this. And look at it. That's cool. So it never hurts to ask. Just pick up the phone and ask. And I think that probably applies to more than just ranch life. But I tend to have the mentality myself that, I don't need help. I'll just do it myself. I don't need to call somebody. But, with the calves that I was just talking about, I needed help. Reality is I needed help, and my neighbors were there. And with this is a way better result than I could have ever done on my own. There's no way I could have dug that much dirt as those guys did. They had huge equipment, and it was fast. When they were running, I mean, they more or less dug this entire pond in about a month's worth of work, and that's pretty slow actually compared to what they could have done, I think. So pretty cool. But you got to just ask. So sometimes you need help with stuff, and trying to get better at that. I tend to be a little bit pig-headed, but you know, man, if there's help available, just ask for it. You know, look for it. In fact, so there's no shame in having somebody help you do something, and it's, I don't know, just not, I guess, in my nature to ask for help. Maybe that's with all men. I don't know, but yeah, I asked for help on this, and actually I was helping them out, so you know, it worked out great for me, worked out great for them as well. But all it took was just a simple conversation and showing them the place, and I ended up not only with a pond, but it's so much better, so much better than it ever would have been if I'd done it myself. On that same note, I was wanting to overseed this, which I did. You guys may remember, my neighbor helped me with that. But once again, I just asked, you know, hey, do you have a way to do this? What do you know about this? Turns out, my neighbors had a badass little seeder that goes on the back of a truck, and it's perfect. And we seeded all this grass that's growing in here. This spot looks dead. It's not. It's just got old hay on it. But all the grass all the way around the pond here, where it's all nice and beautiful and green, my neighbors helped me with that. And I didn't have the equipment to do it, to overseed it, but I just simply asked, you know, hey, can you help me with this? And they were happy to. So, you know, that there are programs, NRCS programs, stuff like that, that will help you with this sort of thing and with stocking the fish and stuff like that. I don't know about all those with the fish yet, working on it. But, you know, you just pick up the phone and ask. The worst somebody can say is no. And so far, I mean, this is great. So, yeah, ask for help. There's no shame in it. And I've always known that, but like I said, pig-headed sometimes. So, trying to get better about that. But call people. Use the resources that are available to you. So whether it's friends, neighbors, you know, guy doing a construction project, whatever the case, just don't try to take the world on by yourself, I guess, is a lesson here. And, well, actually, let's go look at something else, because it's the same thing there. So right here, I'm looking at the fence that my neighbors helped me build, and this is the new pasture. Pond's right up here behind me. We ran a lot of fence through here, though, and my neighbors helped me with it. They taught me a cool trick. So let me turn the camera around. I'll show you real quick. And it's super handy and one of the most useful things I've ever learned that I never knew. So this thing right here, this is a fence clip. Okay. Now, here's one that's not been used yet. And we'll just install it down here. So the way that works, you see how it sits over there. Now, they sell these that have loops on both sides. And they sell these fancy little fork tools. Back up here. And this one's kind of bent up. That can go around both sides of your T-post and bend that down. And so the way that works, that one's actually kind of coming up. But you can see you bend that loop around the bottom, and what that does is it pulls it tight up against the T-post, and that's why these have these little nubs on it. What they taught me, though, while we were building this fence, is that the handiest tool for setting these clips is a screwdriver. Let me just show you. Super easy. You just bend it and you're done. So, beautiful trick. Super, super handy. So anytime you hear me talking about fence clips, that's what I'm talking about. And predominantly, this is the tool that I use. So when I go to fix fence, I have pliers in one pocket and this screwdriver in another. And that's ugly part of the fence. Let's not show that any longer than I have to. But this screwdriver, I keep this in my four-wheeler, and as well as a pair of pliers, and I use that to fix or build fence. Screwdriver, handiest tool ever. And that brings me to, I think for this video, the last thing I'm going to talk about as far as lessons learned, which is something that I would not have really considered before I bought my land, and I happened to get really lucky. But if you're going to buy a piece of land specifically to start a cow-calf operation or any kind of cattle operation, if you're new to it like I was, my biggest piece of advice would be to go talk to your neighbors or potential neighbors, right? And if you're about to buy a piece of land, just look on either side, up and down, east, west, north, south, everywhere, and talk to as many people that already live there, who are around there as you can, who are doing the same type of thing that you are, whether they're running the exact same kind of operation or just anything similar. If you're going to be running animals of any kind, I would highly recommend that you talk to your neighbors. As I said, I got very, very lucky, and to the east and west of me, I have excellent neighbors, and they've been invaluable. I mean, absolutely saved my bacon on multiple occasions. So, taught me stuff from building fence, that helped me sort cows in the rain, whatever. They're just down for it, and they're absolutely awesome. And I didn't know to go talk to them and have that conversation ahead of time, but looking back on it, I should have, and I would have known that it was going to be awesome, and that I would have backup, and that I would have help for everything. But the most important thing that I think you could possibly do is figure out who your neighbors are, and decide before you ever buy the place if they're going to be your friends, first of all, and you know, allies for what you're trying to do. Allies kind of has a negative connotation these days, I think, but man, I'd be sunk without my neighbors, and I'm extremely grateful and super appreciative that I have them, because they are absolutely a mainstay in my life out here. Without them, and you guys hear about them all the time on the channel, they don't want to be on camera, which is fine. That's their right. That's their prerogative. But yeah, without them, you know, none of this would have happened. Without one of my neighbors, I wouldn't have known to go talk to the guy about building this pond. I wouldn't have known about the best way to build that fence. I wouldn't have known, actually, wouldn't have even known how to sort out those calves in the ring that I was talking about earlier. Wouldn't have even known how to do it. They taught me all that, and they've been just in my corner from the get-go. They're some of my best friends in the world at this point, and like I say, super appreciative. And I mean, I don't think I'd have any of this without them. Cows over here all happy and healthy. My first year was rough. I didn't feed them enough. There's another lesson learned for you. But it was my neighbors watching, and who ultimately just decided to say something like, hey, I was screwing up, and they told me so, and I fixed it this year, and the result is tremendous. So, you know, just got to have some good, honest people around you. Makes all the difference. So if you go to buy land somewhere, whether you weren't running cattle or not, but just go meet your neighbors first, because people you're going to live next to, you can live with them if you want, or you know, you can have neighbors that don't like you, that you don't like, and man, it's just going to be miserable all the way around. But I got super lucky. They're great people, and I love them to death. So alrighty, I'm gonna make another video like this, probably actually a couple. I've learned so much over the last 3 years. I can't capture it in one video, but that's probably enough for this one. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.